Welcome to the Payment Shed podcast, live from FTT Embedded Payments and Super Apps. Michaela Weber, you are our first guest on the show today. We have Brain Geffery co-hosting with me, and Justin's over in Greece sunning himself. So welcome, Brain, as well to the Payment Shed podcast for the first time. Please, can you introduce yourself? Tell us little bit about your background and your current role at Commerce as well.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be back at FTT. Such a busy show today. I'm Michaela Weber. I'm the Senior Vice President of Payments at Commerce. Commerce is a software company with our sub-brands BigCommerce, Feedonomics, and MakeSwift. And we're focused on helping companies sell in an e-commerce space and also list and show their goods on marketplaces and optimize their marketplace fee. So thrilled to be here. My background is payments. Actually, I used to work with Justin at WorldPay. And then was at Molly, the European-focused scale-up, and now stepped over to the e-commerce software side to support merchants who are selling online e-commerce.
Very good. Very good. And you guys sit kind of right at the intersection of commerce platforms, payments, and merchant growth. Let's start with how commerce itself is evolving, shall we? And we're seeing payments become increasingly embedded, which is kind of the subject matter of today's event, right? When we look at the merchant economics that we see in the market with embedded, how do you guys look at that currently in the space?
Great question. And actually, as BigCommerce, we recently launched our own embedded payment product, BigCommerce Payments, which is powered by PayPal. And that's really focused more on our SMB customers who are looking for a bit more of a turnkey bundled solution that's going to give them Apple Pay, Google Pay, PayPal, for our US merchants, Venmo, Afterpay, Klarna, right out of the box. So it's a nice way to get started, ensure you've got an optimized payment stack. I think the embedded experience, number one, the real criticality is merchant experience. So if you're going to be launching an embedded product, it has to be easier and solve pain points for merchants. One of the things that we've seen with our BigCommerce payments is for our smaller customers, they love having an embedded dashboard right in their control panel where they manage their e-commerce site. So it's much easier for them than switching constantly between a payment portal and their control panel. For our larger, more complex merchants, they're used to the complexity, right? They're maybe not as focused on taking away some of those points of friction. And so I think embedded is an amazing tool for software companies to make things easier for their merchants, but you have to know your merchant and know what their pain points are and where you're solving a problem versus a merchant that is larger. And we work with multi-billion-dollar merchants for whom that complexity of having a separate payments portal is not something that is a challenge for them. So all depends on making your merchants' life easier, solving their pain points. And that's been our focus area.
Yeah, because especially what we're seeing right now is that we're moving away from where payments used to be just this bolt-on feature to an e-commerce platform to now being much more integrated or embedded within the entire space. And that's, of course, why we're also here at this conference as well. How does that change how you develop that core products as a platform?
Yeah, it's a great perspective to have, which is understanding that for merchants that are selling online and for any merchants consuming software, payments is absolutely critical. And so making sure that, again, you are providing a merchant-first lens with development, whether that's from a B2B perspective, developing embedded invoicing, making it easier for small B2B merchants to offer credit cards, pass on a compliant surcharge in regions where that is legal. Things like that. I think it is really a focus on being able to consolidate resources. So at BigCommerce, we have over 70 payment integrations. And one of the things we've been focused on this year is reducing the core number of partners that we work with so we can really invest in those integrations, ensure that they're offering Apple Pay, Google Pay as table stakes, right? The right wallet, that merchants are seeing competitive auth rates, that they're able to grow their business. Because one of the things that we saw when we looked at the data is the merchants that we work with who use our largest, most global payment platforms they actually have higher net revenue retention on our software products. Those merchants are healthier, they grow faster, they're more satisfied with their software. And so we're really trying to take those principles and ensure that they're working with payment providers. They're going to match their level of growth and investment, because we all know that it takes quite a lot of capital to run a payments business. And in today's environment, not everyone is investing equally. So it's important for merchants to really choose providers that are investing and innovating as the industry is moving so quickly.
And do you think those merchants are starting to see payments more of or as a revenue driver rather than just a cost center now as well?
I wish I could tell you that I don't continue to hear the notion of paying more for payments as a barrier to moving to a more modern payment provider. That is still often, the first thing that comes out of people's mouths is, I'm getting this great rate from provider X. They also do our banking. They're also doing all these things for us. So I'm willing to move payment providers, but I don't want to pay more. And so one of the struggles is orienting and positioning the value. What does it mean to have your conversion rate increase, to have better authorization, to be able to show more payment methods to your customers and allow them to pay the way they want to pay? So some merchants, I feel, are there and are starting to understand. But there still is, especially given how challenging the macro is, a CFO level discussion, which is, I don't want to pay a penny more for payments. And it's hard to work through. So I think we're making incremental gains, but I wish I could tell you that everyone is 100% aligned with this notion of driving value and the value of payments. It is seen as a cost center in some businesses still.
Especially the last, I would say, 12 months, we're seeing agentic commerce, of course, being a big part of the payments conversation, the commerce conversation. And we're seeing, especially now, disrupting discovery and the way that it's being bought with platforms like a ChatGPT and otherwise launching their own products, pulling back out of the market. MasterCard and Visa, of course, launching their own protocols, especially in Google and Stripe as well. My question to you is that, how are you seeing that? And how do you think AI, and especially within the space of agentic commerce, how's that impacting what you're working on?
Agentic commerce has been such a hot topic. I've been talking at a bunch of conferences. I think you and I were on a panel recently, Dwayne, talking about this topic. So one of the things that we've seen in the data is agentic discovery is here to stay, and it's here in a big way. So the real focus for merchants is, how do I ensure that when a consumer is making a query in an LLM, whether that's Perplexity, Copilot, Gemini, that my products are showing up? And the challenge with that is similar to selling in multiple marketplace channels. Each of the LLMs require different data, product data taxonomy. And so you're managing 5 or 6 different systems trying to understand what's going to work with these LLMs to increase how you can surface your product catalog. So actually, our Feedonomics business is really focused on helping our merchants, who we today optimize their marketplace feeds, helping improve visibility in agentic channels. So agentic for discovery, absolutely here to stay. And merchants should be very focused on ensuring that their product catalog data is orderly and in a way that's easily consumable from the LLM. Because what attracts a consumer to your gorgeous brand website is not necessarily the data that's going to get you surfaced in an agentic search. The agents don't care how beautiful the visuals are on your website. Your consumers do.
Do they have to be careful though? Because if they're really pivoting and looking at those storefronts that they have and the user journeys to gear them up for agentic shoppers, you're still going to have people that don't trust agentic or don't want to use it, right? So you have to find this happy balance of what you're changing on your storefront.
So I think agentic discovery is product taxonomy, right? It's making sure that I'm using the right colors to describe the blue on this sweater and the features and functionality, and that data can get surfaced by the agents. Agentic commerce, as me sending my robot out to buy the navy blue sweater, that's one where, while we have seen some agentic use cases for buying now within an LLM browser session, so we're actually live with a customer on Perplexity. We're working with some customers with Stripe. to ensure they have quick buy functionality within that LLM session. We're really not seeing that as a use case. We're seeing consumers right now still want to go to the brand website, experience it, and have their checkout. I'm personally really interested in the agentic commerce use case of sending my agent out to do kind of rudimentary utilitarian commerce tasks. So booking a hotel within 10 minutes walking distance of this conference. That's a Marriott Bonvoy, so I can earn points, within my corporate price policy. I think those use cases we are going to see quick adoption once we figure out how you're going to be able to validate that my agent is a good actor and I have actually initiated this transaction. There's a lot of regulatory stuff to still work through. But the notion of me sending my agent out to do more product discovery and purchasing, I think that makes merchants nervous because the fraud implications there. And as a consumer, I'm not sure I'm ready for my agent to go out and make some of those more discretionary purchases on my behalf.
So while agentic commerce is definitely something that I'm equally as excited about, it still feels a little bit, in the distant future. However, what we've seen recently with Anthropic, with OpenAI, launching new models, taking over different aspects of code development as well as just engagement and conversion as well. What are other ways of AI that you're currently implementing on your platform to increase conversion and to increase engagement that you see?
So we are using AI tooling, both as teams. I think one of the advantages of being a relatively small tech company is we have very early adopters in terms of essentially having Claude, in this case, kind of run our lives a little bit and help reply to our emails and just really, and on the coding side with our engineering teams, really using all the AI tools. From a merchant perspective, it's developing tooling to help our merchants create purchase orders more easily, semantic search, right? Being able to really use some of the new AI modeling to make it easier for merchants to run and optimize their website and also to analyze their business and implement changes. So it's been an exciting time for us to see how quickly things are moving and look at the velocity with which we're shipping products now, both in the past few months and then also with our roadmap in the next 6 months.
And there's a big debate in commerce at the moment around open ecosystems versus all-in-one platforms. How do you guys tend to think of that trade-off at commerce at the moment?
So I mentioned earlier that we did launch our own embedded payment product, and that's optional. It's not required, and that's really focused on more of our small businesses that are looking for a optimized pay stack because they want to spend their time running other aspects of their business. I would say for larger enterprise customers, we still see the complexity of their business is not suitable for a closed single provider ecosystem. We have many businesses that need to be multi-channel acquired that are selling in over 120, 140 countries and territories globally. That doesn't lend itself to a single solution. These are very dynamic businesses that may have, specific requirements to use OXXO in Mexico and have a different distributor and different payment methods in Indonesia. And to have a one-size-fits-all solution can be quite challenging, especially then when you bring in B2B, which is a whole different animal in terms of the current B2B processes, where we think B2B could go. So our position is we want to make it easier for merchants who are interested in choosing a kind of preset payment stack for them to turnkey run their business, but also want to make sure that those merchants still have free choice to choose a provider that works well with their BigCommerce storefront, or on the enterprise side, to bring their own provider and optimize that way.
Yes, as you mentioned already, your platform, of course, caters for SMB, but you're also enterprise customers as well. And what are you seeing in their preference? Are they looking much more for simplicity or flexibility when it comes to utilizing your product?
So I would say the enterprise side is flexibility, right? And it continues to be for platform customers, so customers that come to us for the BigCommerce software products. They want that flexibility. They're often running more complex businesses. They may have huge numbers of SKUs, customizations, We work with customers who are selling cut-to-order pipes online, right? It's actually a really tricky challenge to have the right number of SKUs to allow you to cut pipes to the centimeter and put that in a basket. We work with some customers who are doing travel money, allowing you to check out with mixed baskets of prepaid cards and cash. So that flexibility is something that those merchants need to run their business. If you're selling socks in a box on a monthly subscription, you can take a kind of standard payments product. I think we all know like what would do good conversion, what would improve your conversion, having Apple Pay, being able to let your customers manage their subscriptions easily, especially in a single market or a couple markets, that's quite simple. But more complex businesses, they require more flexibility. And there's a lot of moving pieces there. Especially for us, we work with a lot of businesses that may be hybrid. So they may have a direct-to-consumer business, but also a B2B business. And so that requires flexibility as well.
There's a good segue into, you mentioned B2B briefly, but B2B is obviously having this massive boom at the moment from a payments point of view, despite it being a more complex space. What do you think is leading to that breakout boom in B2B payments and maybe more products and services starting to feed into that B2B space?
I think the thing about B2B payments has always been that the TAM is outrageously large, right? I think we've been hearing for the past 20 years that the TAM is, billions upon trillions of dollars. The interesting thing with some of the recent AI developments is so much of B2B is still very manual that what we're seeing is B2B merchants able to implement new processes that they used to have, a manual clerk doing purchase orders where they're able to make step changes in terms of how they are making our businesses more efficient, managing headcount on the expense side, being able, and then also just have processes that move faster. We've worked with some businesses who were manually boarding new customers and it was taking them weeks. That's weeks that are extending your time to be able to capture revenue from a new customer. If you can get a agent that can help you with some of that boarding and AI process same day, that's actually improving your overall revenue cycle. So B2B is an area where we're really excited about some of the AI and automation developments, but there's still quite a lot of room to grow. So there's a lot of white space, a lot of merchants that are still on the B2B side using manual processes, have a very old ERP system, have a lot of customizations, and it takes a lot of effort to modernize those systems. But once you do, the businesses are really flying. So we're really excited to be working with some of our B2B merchants on cutting edge implementation of some of their new processes.
I think the final question that is up to
you're made in shelf with flame, bro.
absolutely. So before we let you go, a part of the show that we call the shelf of shame. What frustrates you the most about the payments industry right now? So what really grinds your gears?
So my number one payments pet peeve is when in a checkout environment, and I have this because my dog is on special food. So there's only a couple websites in the UK that offer it. If you ask me to choose my card type in an online checkout, obviously you should already know my card type through the PAN. I shouldn't have to take that step. It's a huge point of dropout and friction. And once every month, I need to go and reorder this dog food. And I go through this. And I actually many times have thought about writing them a note and saying, look, you need to call your payment provider and tell them they need to update your implementation. So for me, it is still requiring customers to choose a card type in checkout. It's an unnecessary point of friction. We've moved past it.
I 100% agree. Yeah, that is definitely going to go on the shelf. I only know button-up box, so I'm going to be going on these random sites and looking for which one's doing that. And we always ask where people can get in touch with you and find out a little bit more about your business, commerce in this case as well.
Sure. Michaela Weber on LinkedIn with one B, Weber. Would love to hear from people and connect. And commerce.com is our website where you can go to learn more about commerce, so big commerce, Feedonomics, and MakeSwift.
Well, thanks for joining us on the show and enjoy the rest of the event today.